was thinking that she needed to know the truth. I was thinking that she was living in a fantasy about her mother while treating me like I didn't matter. I was thinking that if she wanted to understand family trees, she needed to see the whole tree, not just the pretty parts. David rubbed his forehead, the way he did when he was trying to process difficult emotions. Elena, you were hurt. I get that. Seeing yourself excluded from her family tree must have been devastating. But ambushing her in front of her class? That wasn't about helping her understand the truth. That was about your pain. He was right, and I knew it. I'd let my hurt feelings drive me to make a terrible decision that had damaged my relationship with Lily, possibly irreparably. I know, I said quietly. I was wrong. I was selfish and I was wrong. The information you found is important, David continued. Lily does need to know about Sarah's legal abandonment, about the arrest, about Isabella. But Elena, this should have been a conversation between the three of us, in our home, with support and time to process. Not a public humiliation. Before I could respond, we heard Lily's door slam upstairs, followed by the sound of muffled crying. I need to go talk to her, David said, standing up. David, let me. No, his voice was firm but not unkind. I think you've done enough for today. Let me handle this. I sat alone in the kitchen, staring at the family tree documents that had seemed so important a few hours ago. Now they just looked like evidence of my own massive failure in judgment. I could hear voices upstairs, David's low, soothing tone, and Lily's higher-pitched responses, sometimes angry, sometimes heartbroken. The conversation went on for over an hour. When David finally came back downstairs, he looked exhausted. How is she? I asked. Devastated, confused. Angry at you, angry at Sarah, angry at me for not telling her about the legal documents sooner. He sat back down across from me. Elena, she asked me if the documents are real. If Sarah really terminated her rights. What did you tell her? The truth, that yes, Sarah signed away her legal rights 8 months ago. That she was arrested for child neglect. That she's been lying to us about why she stopped visiting. I could see the pain in David's eyes as he recounted the conversation. How did she take it? About as well as you'd expect a 12-year-old to take the news that her mother has abandoned her completely. David's voice was heavy with sadness. She's been holding on to hope that Sarah would come back, that they could rebuild their relationship. Finding out that Sarah has legally erased herself from Lily's life, it's shattered something in her. David, I'm so sorry. I know I handled this wrong. Elena, stop apologizing and help me figure out how to fix this. Lily is upstairs crying because she feels like she's lost her mother and alienated her stepmother all in the same day. She told me she doesn't think you'll ever forgive her for excluding you from the family tree, and she doesn't think she'll ever forgive you for humiliating her in front of her class. The weight of what I'd done settled over me like a blanket. In my desire to claim my place in Lily's family, I'd driven a wedge between us that might never heal. What can I do? I asked. I don't know yet, David said honestly. But Elena, you need to understand something. Lily's exclusion of you from that family tree wasn't about not loving you or not considering you family. It was about protecting herself from more loss. What do you mean? David leaned back in his chair, choosing his words carefully. Lily has already lost one mother. Sarah's gradual withdrawal from her life has been traumatic, even if Lily couldn't articulate it. Including you in her family tree would have meant admitting that Sarah is really gone, that you've taken her place. She wasn't ready for that admission. I felt a fresh wave of guilt wash over me. So she was protecting herself, and I made her face the thing she was trying to avoid. Exactly. And you did it in the most public, humiliating way possible. We sat in silence for a few minutes, both lost in our own thoughts about how to move forward. David, I said finally, what if I wrote her a letter? Not to excuse what I did, but to explain why I did it, and to apologize properly? Maybe. But Elena, words aren't going to fix this. You've broken her trust. She's going to need to see that you understand what you did wrong and that you're committed to doing better. That night, I did write Lily a letter. I wrote draft after draft, trying to find the right words to convey my regret without making excuses for my behavior. Dear Lily, I finally wrote, I owe you an apology that's bigger than any words I can find. What I did today was wrong. I was hurt that you'd excluded me from your family tree, and instead of talking to you about it privately, I let my hurt feelings drive me to embarrass you in front of your class. That was selfish and cruel, and I'm deeply sorry. You have every right to be angry with me. You have every right to feel like I violated your trust and your privacy. What I did was not the action of someone who loves you. It was the action of someone who was thinking more about her own feelings than about what was best for you. I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope someday we can rebuild the relationship that I damaged today. But I understand if you need time and space to process everything that's happened. I love you, Lily. Not because I want to replace your mother, but because you're an amazing, strong, beautiful person who deserves to be loved unconditionally. I'm sorry I forgot that today. Love, Elena. I slipped the letter under her door before I went to bed, then lay awake most of the night thinking about trust and forgiveness and the delicate work of building relationships with children who have already been hurt. The next morning, Lily barely spoke to me. She ate her breakfast in silence, gathered her school things without making eye contact, and left for school with David without saying goodbye. The letter was still under her door when I checked. She hadn't even picked it up. At school that day, I had trouble concentrating on my third graders. My mind kept drifting to Lily, wondering how she was handling the aftermath of yesterday's revelations, whether her classmates were asking questions, whether she was regretting the family tree project altogether. During my lunch break, I called my sister Carmen. Elena, what's wrong? You sound terrible. I told her everything, about the family tree, about what I discovered about Sarah, about my disastrous decision to reveal everything in front of Lily's class. Carmen listened without interrupting, making occasional sounds of sympathy or concern. Mija, she said when I finished, you really messed up. I know that. The question is how to fix it. Maybe you can't fix it, Carmen said gently. Maybe the best thing you can do is give Lily space to process and trust that your relationship is strong enough to survive this mistake. But what if it's not? What if I've destroyed everything we've built? Elena, listen to me. You've been in that girl's life for 4 years. You've loved her through tantrums and homework struggles and middle school drama. You've been there for soccer games and bedtime stories and all the ordinary moments that build real relationships. One terrible day doesn't erase all of that. But Carmen, you didn't see her face. The betrayal, the hurt. I'm sure it was awful. But Elena, she's 12. Her world just got turned upside down in about 6 different ways. She needs time to figure out what all of this means for her life, for her identity, for her relationship with you and with David. Carmen paused. But Elena, you also need to do some thinking about why you felt so threatened by being excluded from that family tree. About why you felt like you had to prove your place in her life instead of trusting that you'd earned it. That afternoon, when I got home from school, I found David in the living room with a stack of papers. What's all that? I asked. Adoption paperwork, he said. I called a lawyer today. If Sarah has terminated her rights, and if Lily wants it, there's a clear path for you to legally adopt her. My heart leaped, then immediately sank. David, after what I did yesterday, I don't think Lily's going to want me to adopt her. Maybe not right now, David said. But Elena, the option is there. When she's ready, when she's processed everything that's happened, the option is there. Have you talked to her about it? Not yet. I think she needs more time to absorb the reality of Sarah's abandonment before we can talk about moving forward with legal adoption. That evening, Lily came downstairs for dinner but still barely spoke to me. She answered David's questions about school and talked about her friend Madison's birthday party over the weekend, but she directed all her conversation toward her father. When David mentioned that he'd picked up adoption paperwork, Lily's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Adoption paperwork? She said quietly. If you wanted Elena to be your legal mother, David explained gently. Since Sarah has given up her rights, there's nothing preventing Elena from adopting you, if that's something you'd want. Lily looked at me for the first time since the disastrous presentation. Would you want to adopt me? Even after I excluded you from my family tree? The question was so loaded with hurt and hope and confusion that it took me a moment to respond. Lily, I said carefully, I would be honored to be your legal mother. Not because I want to replace your biological mother, but because I love you and want to be part of your life forever. But that's a decision you need to make when you're ready, not something you need to think about right now. But you're mad at me, Lily said, for not including you in my family tree, for not calling you my real mom. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad at you. I was hurt, and I handled that hurt very badly, but I'm not mad at you for protecting yourself. You had every right to define your family however felt safe to you. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Elena, why didn't my real mom want me anymore? The question hung in the air like a weight. David and I exchanged glances, both of us knowing that this was one of those moments that would shape how Lily understood herself and her worth for years to come. Lily, I said slowly, your mother's decision to give up her rights wasn't about you not being worth loving. It was about her not being able to be the mother you deserve. Sometimes adults make choices that are about their own limitations, not about the children they're supposed to protect. But she promised she'd come back. She said she just needed time to get her life together. I know, sweetheart, and I think she probably meant it when she said it. But sometimes people make promises they can't keep, not because they don't love you, but because they don't know how to love you the way you need to be loved. Lily was crying now, the kind of deep body-shaking sobs that come from grief too big for a 12-year-old body to contain. I looked at David, silently asking permission to comfort her. He nodded. I moved to Lily's chair and wrapped my arms around her, letting her cry against my shoulder. It's not fair, she sobbed. Why doesn't she want me? What's wrong with me? Nothing is wrong with you, I said firmly. Lily, you are funny and smart and kind and creative. You are worthy of love, worthy of protection, worthy of people who show up for you every single day. Your mother's choices don't reflect anything about your value as a person. We sat like that for a long time, Lily crying and me holding her while David cleared the dishes around us. When her sobs finally subsided, Lily pulled back and looked at me with red, swollen eyes. Elena, I'm sorry I didn't include you in my family tree. I was scared that if I admitted you were my real family, it would mean my mom was really gone forever. Oh, sweetheart, I said, smoothing her hair. You don't owe me an apology. You were protecting yourself, and that's exactly what you should have done. But I do owe you an apology, Lily insisted. Because you are my family. You've been my family for 3 years. You help me with homework and take me to soccer practice and make my lunch every day and tell me bedtime stories. You remember what snacks I like, and you know when I'm sad even when I don't say anything. She paused, wiping her eyes. My real mom used to forget to pick me up from school. She'd promise to come to my soccer games and then not show up. She'd say she'd call and then I wouldn't hear from her for weeks. But you show up. Every day, you show up. I was crying now too, overwhelmed by the weight of her words and the trust she was placing in me despite my terrible mistake. Lily, I will always show up for you. Always. Even when I make mistakes like I did yesterday. Even when I hurt your feelings or handle things wrong, I will always be here. Promise? She said, her voice small. I promise. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, David and I sat in our bedroom talking about the future. Do you think she'll want you to adopt her? David asked. I think she might, I said. But I also think she needs time to grieve the mother she thought she had before she can fully embrace the mother she actually has. And what about Isabella? Are you going to reach out to her? I'd been thinking about that all day. Isabella, the half-aunt in Phoenix who had been trying to connect with Sarah for years, who had nieces and nephews she'd never met. I think I should, I said. Lily needs to know that she has family who want to know her, who have been thinking about her. She needs to understand that Sarah's abandonment doesn't mean she's unlovable. It means Sarah doesn't know how to love. David reached over and took my hand. Elena, what you did yesterday was wrong. But what you're doing now, putting Lily's needs first, helping her understand her worth, showing her what real family looks like, that's exactly right. 2 weeks later, I was in the kitchen making Lily's lunch when she appeared in the doorway holding a poster board. Elena, I made something for you. I turned around to see a new family tree, completely different from the one she'd presented to her class. This one had me at the center, with branches extending to David and Lily, to my parents and Carmen and Diego, to the Martinez family traditions and values that had shaped who I was. But it also included Sarah, not as the perfect mother Lily had imagined, but as the complicated, flawed person she actually was. And it included Isabella and her children, the family members Lily was planning to meet during spring break when we flew to Phoenix. Lily, this is beautiful, I said, studying the careful way she'd drawn each connection. I wanted to show you what my real family tree looks like, she said. Not the one I thought I was supposed to have, but the one I actually have. At the bottom of the poster, she'd written, Family isn't just about where you come from. It's about who chooses to love you, who shows up for you, and who helps you become the person you're meant to be. Lily, I said, my voice thick with emotion, this is perfect. Elena, she said quietly, when you're ready, when Dad's ready, when I'm ready, I think I'd like you to adopt me. For real. I hugged her then, this brave, wise, resilient girl who had taught me more about family and forgiveness than I'd ever taught her. I'd be honored, I whispered. I'd be so honored. Chapter 4. Building New Branches. 6 months later, I stood in Judge Patricia Hendricks' courtroom wearing my best dress and holding Lily's hand. David was on Lily's other side, and behind us sat my parents, Carmen, Diego, and Isabella with her 3 children who had flown in from Phoenix for the occasion. Lily Morrison, Judge Hendricks said, looking directly at my soon-to-be daughter, you understand that this adoption will make Elena Martinez your legal mother, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails? Yes, Your Honor, Lily said, her voice clear and confident. I understand. And you're certain this is what you want? Yes, ma'am. Elena has been my real mom for a long time. This just makes it official. The judge smiled. Elena Martinez, do you promise to love, protect, guide, and support Lily as your daughter, to be present for her triumphs and challenges, and to always act in her best interests? I do, I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. Then by the power vested in me by the state of California, I hereby grant this petition for adoption. Lily Morrison, you are now legally Lily Morrison Martinez. Congratulations to your family. The courtroom erupted in cheers and applause. Isabella was crying, my mother was taking pictures, and Diego was making faces at Lily to try to make her laugh. But the moment that mattered most was when Lily turned to me and said, "Hi, Mom." Not Elena. Not Mom Elena. Just Mom. "Hi, my beautiful daughter," I said back. That evening, we had a celebration dinner at our house. Isabella and her children were staying with us for the week, and watching Lily connect with her cousins, Maria, age 10, Carlos, age 8, and baby Sophia, had been one of the most beautiful parts of this whole experience. "Tia Elena," Maria said to me in Spanish, "Lily told us you make the best tres leches cake. Is that true?" "Well," I said, grinning at Lily, "I learned from the best, my grandmother's recipe." "Can you teach us?" Carlos asked. "Mom tries to make it, but it never tastes right." "Hey," Isabella protested, laughing. "My tres leches cake is perfectly adequate." "We'll have a baking lesson tomorrow," I promised. "Lily can help teach you. She's become quite the expert." After dinner, while the adults were cleaning up, I found Lily and her cousins in the living room looking through photo albums. They were sprawled on the floor, the younger kids asking Lily questions about her school, her friends, her life in California. "Lily," Maria said, "are you sad that your birth mom isn't part of your family anymore?" It was such a direct question, the kind only children ask, and I held my breath waiting to see how Lily would answer. "Sometimes," Lily said thoughtfully. "I'm sad that she couldn't be the mom I needed her to be. But I'm not sad about my family now. Elena is the mom who shows up for me every day. She's the mom who helps me with homework and takes care of me when I'm sick and remembers all the little things that matter to me." She paused, looking over at me in the kitchen. "And now I have cousins and a tia Isabella and abuelos who spoil me rotten. My family is bigger now, not smaller." Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Lily knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom? Can I talk to you for a minute?" "Mom?" I didn't think I'd ever get tired of hearing that word from her lips. "Of course, mija. Come sit." She climbed onto the bed and curled up next to me. "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me, even when I was being stupid about the family tree project." "Lily, you weren't being stupid. You were protecting yourself." "Maybe, but I also wanted to thank you for finding Isabella. For helping me understand that I have family I didn't even know about. For showing me that family isn't just about the people who share your DNA, it's about the people who choose to love you." She was quiet for a moment. "Mom, do you think Sarah ever thinks about me?" It was a question she'd asked several times over the past few months, and I'd learned that the answer mattered less than the way I responded to her need to understand her worth. "I think she probably does," I said honestly. "I think she probably misses you and wishes she could have been the mother you deserved. But Lily, her thoughts about you don't determine your value. Your value comes from who you are: kind, funny, smart, creative, brave. Your value comes from the love you give and receive from the people who are actually in your life. Like you and Dad and Isabella and the Martinez grandparents?" Exactly like that. She was quiet for another moment. "Mom, I have something to tell you." "What's that, sweetheart?" "I'm working on a new family tree project for next semester. Mrs. Patterson said I could do an extra credit presentation about blended families and adoption." "That sounds wonderful. What are you going to include?" Lily grinned. "Everything. The biological family and the chosen family." the people who stayed and the people who left. The way families can break apart and come back together in new configurations. The way love creates connections that are stronger than DNA. And what's your thesis going to be? That family trees aren't just about the past, they're about the future. They're about the love we choose to cultivate and the legacy we decide to create. I hugged her tightly. Lily Martinez, you are going to change the world. Maybe, she said. But first, I'm going to help teach my cousins how to make tres leches cake. 2 years later, Lily's extra credit family tree presentation was selected to represent Riverside Middle School at the County Social Studies Fair. She stood in front of judges and students from across the region, presenting a family tree that looked nothing like the traditional nuclear family model. Her tree included biological relatives and adopted relatives, step-relatives and chosen family, friends who had become like siblings, and teachers who had become mentors. It included people from different cultural backgrounds, different socioeconomic levels, different life experiences. At the center of the tree, instead of a traditional married couple, Lily had drawn a heart with the words, "Unconditional love," written inside. Family, she concluded her presentation, isn't about fitting into a perfect structure. It's about creating a network of people who support each other, who show up for each other, who choose to love each other through good times and bad. It's about understanding that love makes us family, not biology. She won first place. Isabella flew in from Phoenix for the award ceremony, bringing her children and her husband Roberto, who had become like an uncle to Lily. My parents were there, of course, along with Carmen and Diego. David's parents had driven down from Oregon. Even Mrs. Patterson was there, beaming with pride at her students' achievement. After the ceremony, as we were taking pictures and celebrating, Lily pulled me aside. "Mom, there's something I want to tell you." "What's that, mija?" "I got a letter from Sarah last week." My heart stopped. In the 2 years since the adoption, Sarah had made no attempt to contact Lily. We'd assumed she was respecting the boundaries she'd created when she terminated her rights. "What did it say?" I asked carefully. "She wanted to know if I was okay. She said she'd heard about the adoption through some mutual friends, and she wanted me to know that she was happy I had found a family that could love me the way I deserved to be loved." Lily pulled the letter from her backpack and handed it to me. It was written on plain paper in Sarah's careful handwriting. "Dear Lily," I read, "I know I have no right to contact you after everything that's happened. I know I gave up that right when I made the hardest decision of my life and signed those papers. But I wanted you to know that not a day goes by that I don't think about you and wish things could have been different. I heard that Elena adopted you, and I want you to know that I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you have someone who can love you consistently, who can be there for you in all the ways I couldn't. I'm grateful that you have a family that shows up for you. I love you, Lily. I will always love you. But I also know that love isn't enough if you can't back it up with action, with presence, with the daily choice to put someone else's needs ahead of your own. Elena can do that for you. She has been doing that for you. Be happy, my beautiful girl. Live the life you deserve to live. Love always, Sarah." I folded the letter carefully and handed it back to Lily. "How do you feel about it?" "Sad," Lily said honestly. "But also, grateful? It's like she's finally admitting the truth about what happened between us. And she's recognizing what you mean to me." "Are you going to write back?" Lily considered this. "Maybe someday, but not right now. Right now, I want to focus on the family I have, not the family I lost." She looked around at our celebration, at Isabella laughing with my mother, at her cousins playing with Diego, at David talking with Judge Hendricks about his work at the hospital. "This is my family," she said. "These are my people. This is where I belong." That night, as I was getting ready for bed, I found myself thinking about the family tree project that had started this whole journey. About the crumpled paper I'd found in Lily's backpack. About my hurt feelings and terrible judgment. About the way pain can make us act in ways that damage the very relationships we're trying to protect. But I also thought about resilience and forgiveness, and the way families can heal from even the worst mistakes. I thought about love that's strong enough to withstand betrayal and disappointment, and the messy work of learning to trust again. Most of all, I thought about Lily, the brave, wise, loving girl who had taught me that family isn't something you're born into, it's something you build. Day by day, choice by choice, through all the ordinary moments that create extraordinary bonds. She was right about family trees. They're not just about the past, they're about the future. They're about the love we choose to cultivate and the legacy we decide to create. And looking around our house that night, seeing the evidence of the life we'd built together, Lily's soccer trophies and art projects, Isabella's children's drawings on the refrigerator, photos from family gatherings that span 2 cultures and 3 generations, I knew we were creating exactly the kind of legacy I wanted to leave behind. A legacy of showing up. A legacy of choosing love. A legacy of understanding that the strongest roots are the ones we grow ourselves, through commitment and patience and the daily decision to be present for the people who matter most. Epilogue. Full circle. 5 years later, I stood in the gymnasium of Riverside High School, watching my daughter deliver the valedictorian speech to her graduating class. Lily Martinez, now 17 and bound for Stanford University with a full scholarship, looked poised and confident as she addressed her classmates and their families. When I was in 7th grade, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the packed gymnasium, I worked on a family tree project that taught me one of the most important lessons of my life. I learned that family isn't about the branches that are drawn on a piece of paper. It's about the roots that grow deep through love, commitment, and the choice to show up for each other every single day. In the audience, Isabella was crying, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Her children, now teenagers themselves, were recording Lily's speech on their phones to share with their father back in Phoenix. My parents sat proudly in the front row, my mother wearing the corsage Lily had given her that morning, and my father beaming with the kind of pride that grandparents reserve for major milestones. David reached over and squeezed my hand as Lily continued her speech. I want to thank my family, Lily said, looking directly at our section. My dad, who taught me that love means protecting the people you care about. My mom Elena, who showed me that family is something you build with intention and care. My tia Isabella and my cousins, who taught me that love can bridge any distance. My abuelos and extended family, who showed me that belonging is something you create together. She paused, her eyes finding mine across the crowded gym. And I want to thank all the families here today, in all their different forms, biological families, adopted families, blended families, chosen families. You've all taught us that there's no single right way to love each other, but there are countless beautiful ways to build connections that last a lifetime. After the ceremony, as we were taking pictures and celebrating with friends, Mrs. Patterson approached our group. She was retired now, but she'd made a point of coming to Lily's graduation. Elena, she said, hugging me warmly. I wanted you to know that Lily's family tree presentation from 9th grade is still part of my curriculum. I use it every year to help students understand that families come in all different shapes and sizes. Really? I said, surprised. Oh yes, that presentation changed the way I teach about family structures. Lily helped an entire generation of students understand that love creates family, not just biology. As the evening wound down and extended family members started heading back to their hotels, Lily and I found ourselves alone in the kitchen, just like we had so many times over the years. Mom, she said. I have something for you. She handed me a wrapped package, beautifully decorated with silver ribbon. Lily, you didn't need to get me anything. This day is gift enough. Just open it, she said, grinning. Inside was a leather-bound photo album titled, The Martinez Family Tree, a story of love and growth. The pages were filled with pictures from the past 8 years, family dinners and holiday celebrations, soccer games and school performances, quiet moments and major milestones. But the last page was what made me cry. It was a photo from the adoption ceremony 5 years earlier, with a caption written in Lily's handwriting, "The day our family became official." Though we'd been family in our hearts long before the law recognized it. Below that was a smaller photo I'd never seen before. The two of us in the kitchen on a random Tuesday evening, me helping her with homework while she laughed at something I'd said. David must have taken it without us knowing. The caption read, "This is what love looks like, showing up for homework and heartbreak, for ordinary moments and extraordinary milestones, for all the beautiful, messy, complicated work of being family." Lily, I said, my voice thick with emotion. This is the most beautiful gift I've ever received. Mom, thank you for showing me what real family looks like. Thank you for choosing me, even when I made it hard. Thank you for teaching me that the best roots are the ones we grow ourselves, through love and commitment and showing up every single day. She hugged me then, this young woman who had started as my stepdaughter and become my daughter in every way that mattered. I love you, Mija, I whispered. I love you too, Mom. Always. That night, as David and I were getting ready for bed, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this moment. From that crumpled family tree project to this graduation day, from hurt feelings and terrible mistakes to forgiveness and healing, from a blended family finding its way to a daughter who understood that love creates the strongest branches of all. Elena, David said, watching me flip through Lily's photo album. What are you thinking about? I'm thinking about roots, I said. About how the strongest trees are the ones that weather storms together, that bend without breaking, that grow deeper and stronger with each passing season. And what else? I smiled, closing the album and setting it on my nightstand, where I could see it every morning. I'm thinking about how sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that don't start with the perfect foundation, but build something strong through choice and commitment and the daily decision to love each other well. I'm thinking about how grateful I am that Lily cut me from that first family tree project, because it forced us to have conversations we needed to have, to face truths we needed to face, to build something real instead of settling for something convenient. David reached over and turned off the bedside lamp, leaving us in the comfortable darkness of our shared bedroom. Elena, he said softly, what we built together, this family, this love, this life, it's exactly what I hoped for when I married you. You didn't just become Lily's mother, you became the heart of our family. As I drifted off to sleep, I thought about Lily, probably lying awake in her room thinking about Stanford and the future spread out before her like an endless possibility. I thought about Isabella and her children, who would always be part of our story now. I thought about my parents and Carmen and all the people who had welcomed Lily into our family with open arms. And I thought about Sarah, wherever she was, and hoped she knew that her daughter was thriving, surrounded by people who had chosen to love her completely and unconditionally. Sometimes the most important thing you can do for a child is show them that they are worthy of love that stays. Love that shows up. Love that weathers storms and celebrates victories and chooses presence over convenience, day after day after day. That's what we'd given Lily. And in return, she'd given us the gift of understanding that the most beautiful family trees are the ones where love grows the branches, not just biology. Years from now, When Lily has children of her own, I know she'll teach them what we taught her. That family is something you create with intention and care. That love is something you do rather than something you feel, and that the strongest roots are the ones that grow deep through commitment, forgiveness, and the daily choice to show up for each other. That's the legacy we built together. That's the tree that will keep growing, season after season, generation after generation. And it all started with a crumpled piece of paper and a stepmom who learned that sometimes you have to lose your place on someone's family tree before you can help them plant new roots that will last a lifetime. The most beautiful gardens are the ones we grow together, with love, patience, and the unwavering belief that every child deserves a family that chooses them completely. The end. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who refuse to let us settle for less than we deserve. Sometimes family isn't about the branches that exist on paper, but about the roots that grow deep through daily choices, unconditional love, and the courage to show up even when it's hard. The strongest trees are the ones that weather storms together, that bend without breaking, that grow deeper and stronger with each passing season. And the most beautiful families are the ones built not from obligation, but from the deliberate choice to love completely, forgive generously, and create something lasting from the imperfect materials of human hearts. In the end, it's not about whose blood and whose choice. It's about who stays. It's about who shows up. It's about who loves you enough to help you grow into the person you're meant to become. That's what makes a family. That's what builds the kind of roots that last forever. She cut me from the family tree project, so I brought the roots. End of quote. Description: when my stepdaughter excluded me from her school family tree project, calling me not real family, I was devastated. But when I discovered the shocking truth about her biological mother's abandonment and brought proof to the presentation, I didn't just reclaim my place in her life, I gave her the most powerful lesson about what family really means. Chapter 1: The Cut That Went Deep. I found the crumpled paper in Lily's backpack completely by accident. I was looking for her permission slip for the upcoming field trip to the Natural History Museum when my fingers brushed against something wadded up in the bottom corner of her bag. As a stepmom to a 12-year-old, I'd learned that sometimes the most important conversations started with the things kids tried to throw away. The paper was a rough draft of her family tree project, due next week for Mrs. Patterson's 7th grade social studies class. I smoothed it out on the kitchen counter, expecting to see the usual branches and connections we talked about over dinner just last week. But my name wasn't there. Lily had drawn a careful tree with her father David at the bottom, connected to her biological mother Sarah at his side. Above them, she traced lines to her maternal grandparents, the Hendersons, and her paternal grandparents, the Sullivans. She'd included her Uncle Mike and Aunt Janet, even her second cousin Tommy, who lived in Oregon, and sent Christmas cards with pictures of his golden retriever. But there was no branch for me. No connection to my parents, Bob and Linda Martinez. No mention of my sister Carmen or my nephew Diego, who Lily adored. 3 years of bedtime stories, soccer games, homework help, and midnight comfort during nightmares, all of it invisible on her family tree. I stood in my kitchen holding that paper, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. David and I had been married for 3 years, together for 4. I'd been in Lily's life since she was 8 years old, through her parents' messy divorce, through Sarah's gradual withdrawal from Lily's life, through all the adjustment and healing that came with blending a family. I thought we'd found our rhythm. I thought I'd earned my place not just in David's life, but in Lily's. I thought the way she'd started calling me Mom Elena, instead of just Elena, meant something. I thought the Mother's Day card she'd made me last year, the one that said, "Thank you for being the mom my heart needed," meant I was family. Apparently, I was wrong. Elena? David's voice came from the hallway as he hung up his keys. "I'm home. How was your day?" I quickly folded the paper and tucked it into my pocket. I needed time to process this before bringing David into it. He'd been working so hard to help Lily adjust to our marriage, to make sure she felt secure and loved in our newly formed family. The last thing I wanted was to create more tension or make Lily feel caught in the middle. "Good," I called back, forcing normalcy into my voice. "Lily's upstairs doing homework. Dinner's almost ready." David appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing his hospital scrubs. As a pediatric nurse, he had an intuitive sense for when something was wrong with the people he loved. His brown eyes immediately found mine, searching. "What's wrong?" he asked, crossing to me and placing his hands on my shoulders. "Nothing," I lied. "Just tired. Long day at school." I taught 3rd grade at Riverside Elementary, and while I loved my job, managing 28 eight-year-olds was exhausting on a normal day. Today had been complicated by a parent conference with Mrs. Chen about her son Kevin's reading progress, a playground accident that required first aid and incident reports, and now this. David studied my face, clearly not buying my explanation, but before he could press further, Lily's voice echoed down the stairs. "Dad, Elena, can someone help me with this stupid math homework?" "Language," David called back automatically, but he was smiling. "Coming, kiddo." As he headed upstairs, I pulled the crumpled paper from my pocket and looked at it again. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this was just Lily's way of simplifying the assignment, focusing on blood relatives instead of the more complex reality of modern family structures. Maybe it didn't mean what I thought it meant. But looking at that careful tree, at the deliberate way every branch was connected to someone except me, I knew I wasn't overreacting. This was intentional. This was Lily's way of drawing boundaries, of defining who belonged and who didn't. The question was why. Dinner was strained, at least from my perspective. Lily chattered about school, about her friend Madison's upcoming birthday party, about the drama in her friend group involving someone named Sophia and a boy named Alex. David listened with the patient attention of a father who genuinely enjoyed his daughter's company. I tried to participate, to ask the right questions and show interest in Lily's social world, but the family tree paper felt like it was burning a hole in my pocket. Every time I looked at Lily, her blonde hair pulled back in the messy bun she'd perfected lately, her blue eyes animated as she told a story about her science teacher, I wondered what I'd done wrong. What had changed between us? "Elena, you're quiet tonight," Lily observed, stabbing a piece of broccoli with her fork. "Everything okay?" The irony of her concern wasn't lost on me. Here she was, checking on my emotional state while simultaneously erasing me from her family history. "Just thinking about some things at work," I said. "How's your family tree project coming along? Do you need any help with research?" I watched her face carefully as I asked the question. A slight flush crept up her neck, and she avoided my eyes. "It's fine," she said quickly. "Pretty straightforward, just basic family stuff." "That's good," I said neutrally. "I'd love to see it when you're done." "Yeah, maybe," Lily said, but her tone suggested that was unlikely. After dinner, while David was helping Lily with her math homework, I sat in our bedroom staring at the family tree draft. I tried to put myself in Lily's shoes, to understand what might motivate a 12-year-old to exclude her stepmother from a school project. Maybe she was still processing loyalty conflicts about her biological mother. Sarah had been largely absent from Lily's life for the past 2 years, moving to California with her new boyfriend and maintaining only sporadic contact. But maybe Lily felt like including me in the family tree would be a betrayal of Sarah, a final admission that her mother wasn't coming back. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe Lily was just asserting her independence, establishing boundaries as she entered her teenage years. Maybe this was her way of saying that while she accepted me as David's wife, she wasn't ready to accept me as family. Or maybe, and this was the possibility that hurt the most, maybe I'd been deluding myself about our relationship. Maybe all the bedtime stories and soccer games and homework help hadn't meant as much to her as they'd meant to me. Maybe I was just David's wife who happened to live in the house, not the maternal figure I'd thought I was becoming. I was still sitting there when David came in, closing the door behind him. "Lily's settled with her homework," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Now, what's really going on? You've been off all evening." I pulled the paper from my pocket and handed it to him without a word. David unfolded it, studied it for a long moment, and then looked at me with a mixture of confusion and hurt on behalf of both of us. "Elena," he said softly, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea she was thinking about the project this way." "Did I do something wrong?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been gnawing at me all evening. Did I overstep somewhere? Push too hard to be her mother when she wasn't ready? "No," David said firmly. "Elena, you've been nothing but patient and loving with Lily. You've given her space when she needed it, stepped up when she needed support, and never tried to replace Sarah. You've been exactly what she needed, even when she couldn't see it herself." "Then why this?" I gestured at the paper. "Why cut me out completely?" David was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I don't know," he said finally, "but I think we need to talk to her about it. This isn't okay, Elena. You're not just my wife, you're part of this family. You've earned your place here, and Lily needs to understand that." "No," I said quickly. "Please don't say anything to her. Not yet. If you make this into a big confrontation, it'll just make her resent me more. Let me figure out how to handle this first." David looked like he wanted to argue, but he could see the determination in my face. "Okay," he said reluctantly. "But Elena, this isn't your fault, and it's not something you should have to fix alone." That night, I lay awake thinking about family trees and roots and the difference between blood and choice. I thought about my own childhood, growing up in a close-knit Mexican-American family where love was expressed through loud dinners and fierce loyalty, and the unshakable belief that family was the most important thing in the world. My parents, Bob and Linda, had been married for 35 years. They'd raised my sister Carmen and me with clear values. Family comes first, you protect the people you love, and love is something you do, not just something you feel. When I'd married David, my parents had embraced Lily immediately. She was their granddaughter, no qualifiers needed. My sister Carmen treated Lily like her own niece, including her in family gatherings and making sure she felt connected to our extended family network. But apparently, that connection only went one way. I thought about Sarah, Lily's biological mother, and the complicated legacy she'd left behind. Sarah had been young when Lily was born, only 19, and while she tried to be a good mother, she'd struggled with the responsibilities of parenthood. The divorce had been acrimonious, with accusations and hurt feelings on both sides. But even after the divorce, Sarah had remained an active part of Lily's life for several years. She'd had Lily every other weekend and for extended periods during the summer. They'd had their own traditions and inside jokes and the special bond that exists between mothers and daughters. Then Sarah had met Marcus, her current boyfriend, and everything changed. Marcus lived in Los Angeles and worked in the entertainment industry. He represented a lifestyle that was exciting and glamorous and completely incompatible with weekend custody arrangements and school pickup schedules. Sarah's visits became less frequent. Phone calls were missed. Promised trips were canceled. Gradually, Sarah had faded from Lily's daily life, becoming more of a distant figure who sent birthday cards and Christmas presents, but wasn't available for homework help or scraped knees or middle school drama. I tried to fill that gap without replacing Sarah, to be a steady maternal presence, while still honoring Lily's relationship with her biological mother. It was a delicate balance, and I thought I was managing it well. Apparently, I'd been wrong about that too. The next morning, Lily was unusually quiet at breakfast. She picked at her cereal and avoided making eye contact with either David or me. "Everything okay, kiddo?" David asked, refilling her orange juice. "Yeah," Lily said, but she didn't sound convincing. "Just thinking about stuff." "What kind of stuff?" I asked gently. Lily looked at me then, and I saw something in her eyes that I couldn't quite identify. Guilt? Sadness? Defiance? "Just school stuff," she said. "The family tree project is due tomorrow, and I'm still working on it." "Do you need any help?" David offered. "I could help you research the Sullivan side of the family. My dad has all those old genealogy records." "No, it's fine," Lily said quickly. "I think I have everything I need." After Lily left for school and David left for work, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about what to do. I could confront Lily directly about the family tree, but that felt like it would put her on the defensive. I could ask David to handle it, but that felt like I was hiding behind my husband instead of dealing with the issue myself. Or I could do something else entirely. I pulled out my laptop and started researching. If Lily wanted to focus on family history and genealogy, then maybe it was time she learned the whole truth about her family tree. Not just the sanitized version she'd constructed, but the real story with all its complications and contradictions. I spent the morning digging through public records, social media posts, and old newspaper articles. What I found was illuminating, heartbreaking, and absolutely crucial for Lily to understand. By lunchtime, I had a plan. Chapter 2: Digging Deeper. The Riverside Public Library had always been my sanctuary. As a teacher, I spent countless hours there researching lesson plans and checking out books for my classroom. Today, I was there for a different kind of research. Mrs. Goldstein, the head librarian, greeted me with her usual warm smile. "Elena, how nice to see you. Are you working on a new unit for your class?" "Something like that," I said. "I need to use the genealogy database and the newspaper archives. Could you help me get set up?" "Of course, dear. Follow me." The genealogy section was tucked away in a quiet corner of the library, equipped with computers that had access to ancestry websites and digitized records. Mrs. Goldstein got me logged in and showed me how to navigate the search functions. "Take your time," she said. "Let me know if you need anything." I started with what I knew. Sarah Henderson Morrison, Lily's biological mother. Born in 1985 in Riverside, California. Married David Morrison in 2007. Divorced in 2012. Moved to Los Angeles in 2018. But there were gaps in that timeline that I'd never questioned before. Gaps that suddenly seemed significant. I searched for Sarah's birth certificate first. Found it easily enough. Born Sarah Elizabeth Henderson to Robert and Patricia Henderson on March 15, 1985. But when I looked deeper into the Henderson family history, things got interesting. Robert Henderson had been married twice. His first marriage was to a woman named Maria Santos, and they'd had a daughter together in 1983. The marriage had ended in divorce in 1984, when the daughter was barely a year old. Robert had married Patricia 6 months later, and Sarah was born the following year. Which meant Sarah had an older half-sister named Isabella Santos. A half-sister she'd apparently never mentioned to David or Lily. I kept digging. Isabella Santos had stayed with her mother after the divorce, and Maria had remarried when Isabella was 5. Her new husband, Carlos Mendoza, had adopted Isabella, and she'd become Isabella Mendoza. But here's where it got really interesting. Isabella Mendoza lived in Phoenix, Arizona. She was married with 3 children. And according to her Facebook profile, which was public, she'd been trying to reconnect with her half-sister Sarah for years. I scrolled through Isabella's posts, looking for any mention of Sarah. What I found broke my heart. Still hoping to hear from my sister Sarah, Isabella had posted 6 months ago. I know our childhood was complicated, but family is family. My kids ask about their aunt all the time. There were earlier posts too. Birthday wishes sent into the void. Mother's Day posts about complicated families. Christmas pictures with captions like, thinking of the family members who aren't here. Isabella had been reaching out consistently for years, and Sarah had never responded. But that wasn't the most shocking thing I discovered. I found a newspaper article from the Los Angeles Times, dated just 3 months ago. The headline read, "Local Woman Sentenced for Child Neglect." The article was brief, but it mentioned a Sarah Morrison who had been arrested for leaving her boyfriend's 8-year-old son alone for 3 days while she went to Las Vegas with friends. The child had been found by neighbors after they heard him crying. He was dehydrated and malnourished. The Sarah Morrison in the article was 37 years old, the same age as Lily's mother. I cross-referenced the details. The boyfriend's name was Marcus Rivera, the same Marcus that Lily's mother was living with. The address matched the Los Angeles apartment where Sarah had been living. My hands were shaking as I printed out the article. Lily's biological mother, the woman Lily still loved and missed and hoped would come back into her life, had been arrested for child neglect. She was currently serving a suspended sentence and was on probation. No wonder she hadn't been calling. No wonder her visits had stopped completely. It wasn't just that she'd chosen her new life over her daughter. It was that she'd proven herself unfit to care for any child. I sat back in my chair, trying to process what I'd learned. Part of me felt vindicated. This explained so much about Sarah's absence from Lily's life. But mostly, I felt heartbroken for Lily, who had been protecting an idealized image of a mother who had already proven she couldn't be trusted with children. I kept researching, diving deeper into Sarah's recent history. What I found painted a picture of someone who had been struggling with addiction and instability for years. There were eviction notices, unpaid bills, and a series of jobs that had ended badly. But I also found something else. Something that would change everything. In my search through court records, I discovered that Sarah had signed away her parental rights to Lily 8 months ago. 8 months ago, while Lily was still hoping her mother would come home for Christmas, Sarah had gone to a courthouse in Los Angeles and legally terminated her rights as Lily's mother. The paperwork was all there. Sarah had claimed that she was unable to provide adequate care for Lily, and that it was in Lily's best interest for David to have sole custody. She'd waived her right to visitation, her right to make decisions about Lily's education or medical care, her right to even be informed about Lily's well-being. Legally, Sarah was no longer Lily's mother. She was just a stranger who happened to share DNA with the 12-year-old girl who still loved her. And David didn't know. The paperwork had been sent to his old address, the apartment he'd lived in before we got married. It had probably been forwarded to some mail collection service and lost in the bureaucratic shuffle. I printed everything out: the court documents, the newspaper article, the information about Isabella. Then I sat in my car in the library parking lot, trying to figure out what to do with what I'd learned. David needed to know about the legal documents. That was non-negotiable. But how much should we tell Lily? How do you explain to a 12-year-old that her mother has not just abandoned her emotionally, but has legally erased herself from her life? And what did this mean for my role in Lily's life? If Sarah was no longer legally her mother, and if David had sole custody, then maybe there was a way for me to become more than just his wife. Maybe there was a way for me to officially become what I'd been trying to be all along, Lily's mother. But first, I had to deal with the family tree project. I drove home and spread all the documents out on my kitchen table. Then I started making my own family tree. Not the sanitized version Lily had created, but the real one. The complicated, messy, heartbreaking truth about her family history. I included Sarah, but I also included the arrest record. I included the Henderson grandparents, but I also included the half-sister they'd never mentioned. I included David and me, but I also included the legal documents that showed Sarah's abandonment and my growing role in Lily's life. And I included my own family, the Martinezes, who had welcomed Lily with open arms, who had given her the stable, loving extended family that she deserved. When David came home that evening, I showed him everything. He sat at the kitchen table reading through the documents, his face going through a series of emotions: shock, anger, sadness, and finally, a kind of grim determination. 8 months, he said quietly. She terminated her rights 8 months ago, and I never knew. The paperwork went to your old address, I said. But David, this changes everything. If Sarah has no legal rights to Lily, then you could adopt her, David finished. If she wanted that. If you wanted that. Of course I want that, I said. The question is whether Lily wants it. And after seeing her family tree project, I'm not sure she does. David looked at the family tree draft that had started all of this. Elena, she's 12. She's confused and hurting and trying to make sense of a situation that doesn't make sense. Her mother has been absent from her life, but Lily's been holding on to hope that she'll come back. Finding out the truth is going to be devastating. But she needs to know the truth, I said. And she needs to understand that family isn't just about biology. It's about who shows up. It's about who loves you unconditionally. It's about who chooses to be in your life, day after day, even when it's hard. David was quiet for a long moment. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that tomorrow, when Lily presents her family tree to the class, she's going to discover that the tree she's drawn isn't complete. And maybe it's time for her to see what her real family tree looks like. I showed David what I'd prepared, a comprehensive family tree that included everyone. The biological relatives and the chosen family. The people who had stayed and the people who had left. The complicated truth about love and loyalty and what it really means to be family. Elena, David said carefully, this could backfire. Lily might not be ready for all of this information. She might blame you for digging into her mother's life. Maybe, I said. But David, she's been living with a fantasy. She's been holding on to hope for someone who has already let her go. That's not fair to her, and it's not fair to us. She deserves to know who her real family is. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about Lily, about the presentation she was going to give tomorrow, about the moment when she would realize that her carefully constructed family tree was missing some crucial branches and included some branches she hadn't known existed. I thought about Isabella, the half-aunt in Phoenix who had been trying to connect with her sister for years. I thought about my own parents, who considered Lily their granddaughter and would be heartbroken to know they'd been excluded from her family history. And I thought about Sarah, wherever she was, who had made the choice to walk away from the most precious thing in the world, a daughter who still loved her despite everything. In the morning, Lily was nervous about her presentation. She'd stayed up late the night before working on her poster board, carefully drawing her family tree and adding photos of the relatives she'd included. I think it looks good, she said, showing David and me her finished project over breakfast. Mrs. Patterson said we need to be prepared to talk about each family member and explain their relationship to us. I looked at her beautiful poster board. She'd done an excellent job with the design and the research. But looking at it now, knowing what I knew, it felt like a work of fiction rather than a family history. "Lily," I said carefully, "are you sure you don't want to include anyone else? Any other family members who might be important to your story?" She glanced at me quickly, then looked away. "I think I got everyone who matters," she said. After Lily left for school, I made a decision. I carefully packed all the documents I gathered into a folder, along with copies of the real family tree I'd constructed. Then I called Riverside Middle School and asked to speak with Mrs. Patterson. "Mrs. Patterson, this is Elena Martinez, Lily Morrison's stepmother. I understand the students are presenting their family tree projects today." "Yes, they are. It's always one of my favorite assignments. The students learn so much about their heritage. I was wondering if it would be possible for me to attend Lily's presentation. There are some family history details that I think would be valuable for her to learn about." Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a moment. "Well, we don't usually have parents attend these presentations. Is there a particular reason you feel your presence is necessary?" "Yes," I said, "there is." Chapter 3, The Presentation. At 2:30 p.m., I walked into room 15 at Riverside Middle School, carrying a folder that would change everything. Mrs. Patterson had agreed to let me attend Lily's presentation, though she'd made it clear that parent involvement was unusual for this particular assignment. The classroom was buzzing with the energy of 12 and 13-year-olds who had just finished lunch and were preparing for their afternoon presentations. Colorful poster boards were propped against the walls, each one displaying a different family tree with photos, names, and carefully drawn branches connecting generations. Lily was at her desk, making last-minute adjustments to her presentation notes. When she saw me walk in, her face went white. "Elena?" she said, her voice small and confused. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to learn about family trees," I said gently. "Mrs. Patterson said it was okay for me to observe." Mrs. Patterson, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and graying hair, approached us. "Elena, thank you for coming. Lily, your stepmother mentioned that there might be some additional family history information that could be valuable for your presentation." Lily looked between Mrs. Patterson and me, clearly panicked. "I don't understand. My project is finished. I don't need any help." "I know, sweetheart," I said, taking a seat in one of the empty desks. "I'm just here to listen and learn." The presentations began with Madison Clark, who had traced her family back to Ireland and Germany. She spoke confidently about her great-grandparents who had immigrated to America in the early 1900s and the family traditions that had been passed down through the generations. Next was Alex Rodriguez, who had discovered that his family had been in California for over 200 years, dating back to when it was still part of Mexico. His presentation included stories about land grants and the changes his family had witnessed as the region developed. Lily was scheduled to present fourth. As the presentations continued, I watched her growing more and more nervous. She kept glancing at me, clearly wondering what I was doing there and what I might know about her family that she didn't. "Lily Morrison," Mrs. Patterson called. "You're up next." Lily walked to the front of the classroom on unsteady legs, carrying her poster board. She set it up on the easel and cleared her throat. "My family tree," she began, her voice shaky. "I researched the Morrison and Henderson families, going back to my great-grandparents." She pointed to the various branches of her tree, explaining her father's side first. "The Morrisons came from Scotland in the 1890s. My great-grandfather Patrick Morrison worked in the logging industry in Oregon before moving to California. Then she moved to her mother's side. The Hendersons have been in California for 3 generations. My grandfather, Robert Henderson, served in the Vietnam War, and my grandmother Patricia was a teacher. She spoke about her various aunts, uncles, and cousins, bringing each family member to life with small details and stories. It was a good presentation, well-researched and thoughtfully delivered. But I noticed what she didn't say. She never mentioned that her mother lived in Los Angeles. She never explained why some family members weren't part of her daily life. And she never mentioned me or my family at all. When she finished, Mrs. Patterson opened the floor for questions. "Lily," said a girl named Sophie, "where does your mom live? You talk about your dad and your stepmom, but I don't think you mentioned your mom." Lily's face flushed red. "My mom lives in California. She's busy with work." "What kind of work does she do?" asked another student. Lily struggled. "She works in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles." I could see her discomfort, could see the way she was trying to present her mother's absence as something glamorous rather than acknowledging the reality of abandonment. "Any other questions?" Mrs. Patterson asked. I raised my hand. Lily's eyes went wide with panic. "Elena, please don't." "I have a question about family research," I said, standing up. "Lily, did you find any information about other family members who might not be included on your tree? Sometimes when we research families, we discover branches we didn't know existed." No, I think I found everyone," Lily said, but her voice was uncertain. I walked to the front of the classroom, carrying my folder. "Mrs. Patterson, would it be possible for me to share some additional family history information that Lily might find interesting?" Mrs. Patterson looked between Lily and me, clearly sensing the tension. "Lily, is that okay with you?" Lily looked trapped. In front of her entire class, with her teacher waiting for an answer, she couldn't very well say no. "I guess," she said quietly. I opened my folder and pulled out the family tree I'd constructed. It was larger than Lily's, more detailed, and included branches that weren't on her poster. "This is really interesting research you've done, Lily," I said, setting my tree beside hers. "But I found some additional family members that you might want to know about." I pointed to a branch on the left side of my tree. "For instance, did you know that your mother has a half-sister named Isabella? She lives in Phoenix with her husband and 3 children, your cousins." Lily stared at the name on my tree. "That's not true. Mom doesn't have a sister." "Actually, she does," I said gently. "Isabella has been trying to reconnect with your mother for years. She posts about you on social media, wondering about her niece." I could see confusion and hurt crossing Lily's face. "Why wouldn't Mom tell me about her?" "I don't know, sweetheart, but Isabella would love to meet you. She has 3 children who would love to know their cousin." I moved to another section of the tree. "And over here, you see the Martinez family. These are the grandparents who have been part of your life for the past 3 years. The aunt and uncle and cousin who consider you family." "But they're not real family," Lily said, but her voice lacked conviction. "What makes family real?" I asked. "Is it DNA? Or is it love and commitment and showing up every day?" Mrs. Patterson stepped forward. "This is fascinating, but perhaps this conversation would be better continued at home." "There's one more thing," I said, pulling out the legal documents. "Lily, there's something about your family tree that you need to know. Something that changes everything." I held up the court papers. 8 months ago, your mother legally terminated her parental rights. She's no longer your legal mother. She chose to give up all claim to you." The classroom went dead silent. Lily stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. "That's not true," she whispered. "Mom wouldn't do that. She's coming back. She just needs time to get her life together." "Honey," I said, my heart breaking for her, "she also was arrested for child neglect. She left her boyfriend's son alone for 3 days. She's on probation. Lily's face crumpled. You're lying. You're making this up because you want to be my mom and you can't stand that I already have one. Lily? No. She turned to face the class, tears streaming down her face. She's lying. My mom loves me. She's coming back. She promised she would come back. The other students were staring in shock and discomfort. This had gone far beyond a simple family tree presentation. Mrs. Patterson intervened. I think we need to continue this conversation in private. Class, please work on your reading assignments while I speak with Lily and Mrs. Martinez in the hallway. In the hallway, Lily was sobbing. How could you do that to me? How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? Lily, I'm sorry it happened this way, but you needed to know the truth. The truth? The truth is that you're not my real mom and you never will be. The truth is that you're jealous of my real mom and you want to replace her. She turned to Mrs. Patterson. Can I call my dad? I want to go home. Mrs. Patterson looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and reproach. Mrs. Martinez, I think perhaps this information should have been shared privately, with your husband present. She was right, of course. I'd let my hurt feelings about being excluded from the family tree override my judgment about what was best for Lily. In my desire to claim my place in her life, I'd traumatized her in front of her peers. You're absolutely right, I said. I'm sorry. I let my emotions get the better of me. David arrived 20 minutes later, having left work early after receiving Mrs. Patterson's call. He took one look at Lily's tear-streaked face and my guilt-ridden expression and immediately understood that something had gone very wrong. Dad, Lily said, throwing herself into his arms. Elena told everyone that Mom doesn't want me anymore. She said Mom signed papers to give me away. She said Mom was arrested. It's not true, is it? Tell me it's not true. David's eyes met mine over Lily's head. In them, I saw disappointment, understanding, and resignation all mixed together. Let's go home, he said quietly. We'll talk about everything at home. The drive home was silent except for Lily's occasional sniffles. She sat in the back seat, staring out the window, while I sat in the passenger seat, feeling like the worst stepmother in the history of blended families. At home, David sent Lily to her room to wash her face and collect herself while he and I sat at the kitchen table with all the documents spread out between us. Elena, he said quietly, what were you thinking? I was thinking that she needed to know the truth. I was thinking that she was living in a fantasy about her mother while treating me,